Howdy everybody, Lloyd here. I really need to talk about the 1997 live-action action comedy, Van-pires. I need people to know that it exists, and I don't have anything particularly insightful to say about it, just that it exists and this is what it is. One night, while hanging out in a junkyard with a significantly older hippie,
oh look, I've got everything you need in the van, man!
4 teens witness a UFO and are transformed into... Fuck. What they had witnessed was the arrival of the Van-pires, a race of vampire cars who must siphon gasoline from regular vehicles and avoid sunlight. Also, one of them is a toilet. Do you see what I see? Anyway, the teens are also turned into vampires, but they're the good ones, so they get their gasoline at the gas station, thank you very much. And one of them has a fucking wallet, and it's also an ugly cartoon. From this day forward, our heroes must do everything they can to stop the bad guys from eating the only thing that'll keep them alive.
I can't sucker my sucker!
It's pretty obvious from the show's opening what Van-pires wants to be.
Part team, part car, all hero.
It's Power Rangers, but with cars.
Mission ignition!
Shapeshifting time.
Even down to the awkwardly shoehorned in toyetic elements.
Good boy!
We've got to get Rev to her car fins before the sun comes up.
So it's really shocking to find out that toys based on the show were never produced, which is a shame. Cars that transform into is such a good idea for a toy. I'm sort of in shock about how unashamed the show is about its own creative bankruptcy.
I don't see any other mutant, teenage, auto, cyborg, power, morphin thingamajig speeding around up here, do you? Come on!
Your enjoyment of the show is based entirely on how many bad car puns you can tolerate.
Okay, just keep it in neutral, Snapper. Don't give it any gas.
Time to put the brakes on this Bronco!
Get off that freeway, Axel! General Mota will rule beside me on my passenger side. I'm not total!
Truck with the army, boy! Truck with truck, Jack!
Axel, haven't you heard of no fault insurance? It was
No carbohydrates for you tonight.
The core group of characters communicate entirely in car puns, making the show feel like seeing your dad become a big bad Beetleborg. But it's not just car puns. Here's a lovely joke taken from the rock and roll episode.
What you say we explore our base instincts and rock the house?
Is that what they mean by hard rock?
Some of the puns are pretty cute. This Nosferatu car is called Car-daver. Most of them are just awful, though. Like the leader of the evil vampires being called Tracula, like a racetrack Dracula, and not the vastly superior Truckula. Bleh. The protagonists are called the Motorvaders, and the cars they fuse with are called Carfins, like coffins because they're vampires. But the award for worst wordplay has to go to the junkyard hippie character Van Helsing. Sorry, that's Van Helsing, because his name is a sentence. Van Helsing. Well, that's just his nickname. His name was already Van, and then one night when he proved himself willing to sing, he was given the nickname Van Helsing. The first episode feels the need to explain this horribly tortured nickname in a scene that makes me acutely aware of just how little time I really have in this life.
And hey, you don't need MTV when you've got VTV. Videos are just moving kiddie picture books, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, it's for the ears, not the eyes. That's how I got my name. Did I ever tell you kids how I got my name? Listen. Your books, blah, 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 blah. You know, it's for the ears, not the eyes. You know, the eyes. The books, blah, 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 blah. You know, it's not the eyes. You know, sing. Van. He'll sing.
Van's the only character that really stands out in any way.
Mr. Van! Oh, wait, now, please, I am just about...
The bad guys are generically evil, the teens all have the same personality. Well, I say personality, but honestly the only thing we ever learn about any of them is that they really like cars. Which one's the brash one, which one is the level-headed one, which one is a coward, which one is comic relief changes constantly, not only from episode to episode, but scene to scene. Just some bros duding around. They do try to differentiate them more as the series goes on. A later episode acknowledges that Rev, the only girl in the group, is in fact a girl, and despite being interested in cars and fighting, she has some traditionally feminine interests as well. It's just that the boys only respect her when she's not like other girls. And the way the show goes about dealing with this is pretty yikes.
She looks real pretty, doesn't she?
Like, she shows up in a dress and heels and everybody loses it.
Hey.
You to maybe give me a compliment?
Jeez, Rev, a compliment? I'm recognizing that you're getting all emotional, as usual, just like a girl. Jeez, girl stuff.
Like, dude, it's a dress. Chill. Why is wearing a dress such a big deal?
Fine. You want to be treated like a girl? Fine. Don't go on the mission. Wouldn't want to mess your dress.
Oh, and Dracula wants to fuck her, and that makes the ambulance so mad that steam comes out her ears.
I could crush her with one tire behind my back, but she dares to defy me. There's something about that female motivator that really gets my motor going.
This episode also showcases Axel's biggest character trait. He's a huge dick. When Axel finds out that Rev doesn't like when he calls the whole group guys because she's not a guy, he says this.
Let's hit the road, guys!
Oh, excuse me, people.
Another episode has Axel accidentally breaking another character's foot, and everyone has to spend the whole episode apologizing to Axel.
You think he sprained his ankle?
See, he feels so bad for letting his friend down that he avoids everybody and is super mean to them whenever they interact. Like, get some therapy, bro. And 13 episodes in, and the only thing I can tell you about Snap, the show's only black character, is that this show's writers are white.
I'm right behind you. Yo, and gave me some AC.
Also, I don't remember the other guy's name.
Go flush yourself!
But Van makes me uncomfortable.
Oh my god, Van, you are so dope!
Don't, what? Oh, no, I don't do drugs.
Van is the show's Alpha 5 and Zordon rolled into one. He leads the Motivators from his Pee-wee's Playhouse-style junkyard command center, complete with periscope and badly animated establishing shots. When the kids are first turned into Van-pires, they are understandably horrified, but Van seems weirdly jazzed.
What a mind blower!
We're definitely changing.
Not changing, evolving.
Like, his wildest DeviantArt fetish has just sprung to life, and these dumb kids aren't gonna ruin it with their bodily autonomy.
Hey.
Van monitors all the Motivators with his magic security cameras that seem to be all over the city. And sure, a lot of what he does is necessary. The Motivators are still children after all, so maybe it's a good idea to have an adult around to be sure that they're not using their new car powers, like flight, for evil. But I was never able to shake the idea that he was sort of a creep.
Before I hit my bunk, I'm gonna commune with my junk.
In the first episode, the Motivators come up with their own group chant, and then Van steps in and makes them do a different chant, and everybody looks super uncomfortable. I thought we did a good job with our chant, but I guess this is okay too. In the second episode, Van pulls some strings and gets everyone tickets to a concert.
Wait a minute! These tickets are for tonight!
Tonight? That's today! But it's not just tickets, it's also backstage passes and a personal meeting with the band, and they even get to hang out on their tour bus, and it's like, why is this old junkyard hippie so determined to show these kids a good time?
You're turning me down. You're turning me down!
Hey, do you think they'll give us a ride on the side?
And yeah, they'll do anything for their die-hard fans. Yeah.
Son, what you're experiencing is a parasocial relationship. But what I imagine is going to stand out to most people is the awful CGI. It should come as no shock that it never manages to convince you that the computer-animated characters exist in the same universe as the human ones. But even worse is how rarely the CG characters feel like they exist with each other. I kind of feel bad for the animators working on this. This was only 2 years after Toy Story, so computer animation was still really expensive and difficult, especially on a Saturday morning budget. So a lot of the action scenes largely consist of ultra close-ups of the characters' faces while they describe all the stuff they obviously must must be doing. Not that the shots that actually have animation are any better. One thing that really stands out to me is how weightless everything is, despite the vampires presumably weighing as much as a fully grown adult plus a car. They must have only had this one shot for the villain's evil lair because the camera tilts the same way every time you see it. Even here, where the human characters are supposed to be standing still, it's still moving. He looks like he's talking, but I guess he's not. They're in a church here, but in these shots they're back in their regular lair. And a lot of the animation seems to be recycled from episode to episode, leading to a lot of characters' eye lines being wrong in any given scene. In the wide shot, we can see Cadaver standing to Trucula's left. We also see that Cadaver is a full head and shoulders shorter than Trucula, who for some reason chooses to look upward and to his right when speaking to him. Between the close-ups, the wrong eye lines, the locations that only exist from one angle, the characters that don't interact with each other, the characters that can't interact with each other, and all the wonky-ass physics. The car's brakes work when it's being thrown. It can be really hard to tell where the characters are in relation to one another, especially when you consider the weird editing.
Yo, track! As for busting your headlights, I guess we're gonna have to take a rain check.
Now, you might think these characters are right next to each other, but they're not. They're in identical pipes on two opposite ends of a lake. Now, they could have easily cut to a wide shot of the lake to re-establish distance. Maybe they could have added an echo effect to Rev's voice. Maybe darken the shot of Trucula a little bit. Anything to indicate space. But the most confusing decision is to have all the characters talking at the same middle volume default at all times.
Break or what? Punch it, Rev! They're right on our taillights!
There, Gale. Oh no. Chip and shift into high fly! Man, those trucks just keep on trucking! This way.
Time to get high! You can run.
Axel!
I'm grounding you, little doggy!
Wee-hoo!
Who's talking here? Why are they talking? Where are they? It's no wonder that the show never took off like Power Rangers or any of the other shows that it was obviously trying to mimic. Sure, kids might believe that these are the same characters as these, but they're not stupid. If this were as ugly as this, or as empty as this, they would know that it sucks. Van-pires is terrible in ways that even a child could easily pick up on, but it can be kind of funny in just how shameless and lazy it is. Can't recommend it for children, but it might have something to offer for a room full of stoned or drunk adults.
I think I have... gas. It's unleaded, too.
Also, they fart gasoline. Christ, this shit is dumb.
Don't forget to read chapters 3 through 6!
Yeah, speed read!